Welcome, I'm Scott Drake, and this is the Family Law Channel. Beginning in October in California, inmates from 33 state prisons who are on parole will now be reporting to county parole agents. Is this something that's going to work? Well, my guest here to comment is retired Superior Court Judge in Santa Clara, Judge Eugene M. Hyman. Judge Hyman, welcome back.
Thank you.
Beginning October 1st, inmates from 33 California prisons who are released on parole will now be reporting to county probation officers rather than state parole agents. On the surface, this looks like getting a lot of prisoners off the state, money. But this is going to, it seems like it's going to cause some problems from a county level, right?
Yes, I mean, it's a great idea for the reasons that you just gave, because more rehabilitation occurs at the county level than at the state level. Number one, you're dealing with a lower class of criminal. They're not as violent, etc. They're more apt at the county level to be able to deal with substance abuse issues more effectively than at the state level. But the problem is one of money, which is why they're doing this whole thing to begin with. So what will happen is that the state will initially give additional money to the state for purposes of probation officers and intervention systems. The state will not give additional money to the counties for purposes of having more judges who are now and prosecutors and public defenders who are now going to have to deal with these parole revocation issues. Historically, parole revocation is done administratively, did not appear in front of a judge, was not prosecuted by a county prosecutor, and they weren't represented by county public defenders. So now what's going to happen under this new alignment system is it will involve judges, public defenders, and prosecutors. So that's going to be a significant expense there, and certainly an increase in time requirements there, without additional judicial resources in terms of courtrooms, judges, courtroom clerks, deputy sheriffs, etc. Now, the problem, historically in California at least, what will happen is that when these dire times continue, the state will back off on its payments to the counties, in which case you're going to have the same issues, the same caseload problems, and you'll have less money for rehabilitation, which is predominantly substance abuse, mental health type issues. And these various people that we're sending to the counties to divert from state prison are going to wind up going back to state prison because of parole violations. If you're not dealing with their problems, why are we going to be surprised when they're going to be committing new crimes in addition to parole violations? It's a shell game. This all started way back during the Reagan years when he was governor of California, and he closed the state mental hospitals. A great idea. Support these people in the local communities. The problem is that they stopped getting resources, they became homeless, and they just created more and more problems. And they also inundated the county jails and the state prisons because they weren't being helped. So that's my concern. The other concern that I have is that a lot of these low-level prisoners could be doing some pretty amazing stuff if they got the appropriate social services and rehabilitation. They could actually be re-engaging with their children, and they could at some point be getting jobs and supporting their children. So the concern that I have is that by just warehousing them this way, we're going to be affecting future generations of children as well.
Well, doing a better job of rehabilitating them is something that I'm sure everybody would agree on. Most people would also agree that these types of individuals don't need to be in state prison. How would this type of thing look if you were going to properly rehabilitate them, I'm guessing, at the county level?
First of all, they would be in some type of drug court environment where a judge and appropriate people we're looking at them on a every other week, weekly, or at least monthly basis to see how they're doing with respect to their drug testing and things of that nature. And in the event that they were violating their conditions of probation, they would receive a tune-up and go back into custody for a while, and to get clean and sober, receive inpatient services while in the county jail. And it's a gradual process. It takes time. It's very time-intensive, but it's also very effective. There are plenty of studies that show that drug courts work. The RAND Corporation has done many studies on that. Very effective return for every dollar spent, but the government is being very foolish in terms of trying to save money at the expense of those that don't have constituents, because unfortunately prisoners don't vote. Not too many people care about them, and the public certainly doesn't care about them, except to the extent that it's costing them a lot of money to house them.
Would it be safe to say that the government right now is looking to save money on the short term, but in the end, it's going to end up costing a lot more in the long term?
Exactly. That's exactly the summary of this whole event. And the thing that, again, I want to emphasize is that we're not thinking about future generation of children. We're so concerned about welfare families reproducing children that go on welfare. We need to also think likewise about prisoners that have children. When there isn't appropriate intervention, their children ultimately go into the criminal justice system too. And not only is this a huge loss of potential, but it's extremely expensive. So if we don't want to talk about it from a human standpoint, let's talk about it from an economic standpoint. It's extremely costly.
He is retired Santa Clara Superior Court Judge Eugene M. Hyman, and he is the host of the Family Law Channel here on the Legal Broadcast Network. Judge Hyman, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Scott Drake, and this is FLC.